Hi, and welcome to Tips and Tools for Reducing Disruptive Behavior. I'm Dacia Moore, your facilitator for today. And today we're going to talk about the second phase of the conflict cycle, the exploding phase, because that's the phase I want you to avoid if at all costs. You don't need to have explosions in your classroom. And by explosions, what I mean are upsets like fights, like yelling, like two children in conflict that are taken away from academic time. They take away from your peace of mind and the peace that you're trying to maintain in your classroom. And to be quite honest with you, your other students get upset by the conflict and it takes them a while to recover. So the best thing to do, you know my motto, catch it early, catch it often. Okay? In order to prevent the explosion phase from occurring, you have to catch it early and catch it often. Now, I've worked with educators doing trainings for teachers, school social workers, school counselors, and I often see that the first go-to behavior management strategy that an educator has, or one of the top three, is get out of my classroom. And I understand that because you're under so much pressure with test scores and getting the curriculum taught and the meetings that you have to go to and all of the extra added pressures that you have on you today. I understand that. But expelling a child from school or kicking them out of your classroom is not an effective behavior management strategy. It really isn't. It can cause more problems for you in the long run. So what do? I have educators ask me that all the time. Dacia, what do I do? Especially since a recent article came out, or a research study came out by the Department of Civil Rights, and they took statistics from the U.S. Department of Education from all the school districts in the nation, and it's found that children of color are suspended 3 times more than Caucasian children. And I think a lot of what is happening is that because of poverty, because of trauma, because of a lot of societal factors, we have a lot of upset in our children, and that upset comes in the form of verbal aggression, physical aggression, and teachers are at their wits' end in terms of what to do about that in the classroom. So again, what do? How do I solve that, Dacia? Well, number one, you want to catch it early, catch it often. Number two, you have to have classroom meetings with your class and get their ideas. What is the proper way to behave? What should some consequences be if you are upset, if you talk out of turn, if you become disrespectful? Have them weigh in and give you suggestions on what to do. Another thing that you must do if you want to improve your statistics so that you're not using out-of-school suspension and in-school suspension on a regular basis, you have got to learn how to de-escalate yourself in the face of a difficult conflictual situation that your students are having. The only way to do that, because we have an automatic fight or flight response, and that's why when you have a situation in your classroom that is escalating, one of the first things you do is say, get out of my classroom, because you are trying to eliminate the problem, and I understand that. But you have to manage yourself, calm yourself down so that you are handling that situation more effectively and keeping that child or those children in the classroom. That's what we want, to keep them in the classroom, allow them to calm down and de-escalate so that you can return to your lesson plan. So here are a couple of tips for you. Number one, you want to develop great relationships with all of your students, or with as many of them as you can. Because the student that you have the best relationship with, that's the one that you need to target when there is a difficult situation arising, if that student is involved. Let's say 2 students are beginning to get into a conflict, voices are being raised. You are to address the student that you have the best relationship with. You look that student directly in the eye, you be firm but not parental. You smile and you say, young man, I would like you to come over here. Okay? You are distracting him or her and causing or breaking that conflict cycle. And that's what I'm talking about. There are 3 stages to a conflict: getting angrier, the explosion, and the aftermath. And many people say, well, my students go from 0 to 10. That may be true, particularly if they have trauma in their history. And we'll talk about trauma in another YouTube video. But you have to break that conflict cycle when they are escalating, and you have to do something. You distract the student. You remove the audience, so you remove them from that audience. You help them to calm down. Here are some other things that you can do. Have a couple of lessons in your back pocket or on, in reserve that can be quiet lessons where you can break up the class and maybe discreetly separate the two students who are having a conflict and have them do quiet work. Quiet always helps to de-escalate a situation. The other thing that I would recommend is to have classical or soft music in the background, especially if you know that something is going on. That soft music helps the students to calm down, and that will certainly break that conflict cycle. The last thing that I want to recommend is you have to calm yourself down. As I said earlier, Long in his research on conflictual situations found that 60% of the conflicts are escalated by the adult. Did you hear that? 60% of the situations are escalated by the adult. I don't want that to be you. I want you to keep yourself calm. How do you do that? You have to practice deep breathing. You have to practice visualization. You have to actually rehearse in your mind successfully handling a conflictual situation. Oh, but Dee, that takes so long. Well, you know what? It is an investment in time, but it will save you time in the long run. I had one of the students in one of my classes or one of my workshops say, but that takes so much time. Well, you're taking time anyway. If a conflict arises in your class, you have to deal with it. So it's better to be proactive, decide on how you're going to handle it, have class meetings with your student, direct your attention to the student that you have the best relationship with. And the last tip is to make sure that your students in your classes feel comfortable informing you of a potential conflict that might occur in your class. They're your little spies. They will tell you. So you have to have an open door policy. You can have some kind of process where they write it down and hand it into you so it can be anonymous. But you have to allow your students to help you to monitor the classroom. Well, that's it for today's tip. I want you to avoid the exploding phase, if at all possible. You won't be able to do it 100% of the time. But if you keep yourself calm and follow these suggestions, you'll get better at de-escalating conflict. See you next time. Bye-bye.